Whew. Hello, gang. Here we are, Daily Art Adventure number 1000. And we have crazy circumstances causing all kinds of problems. All right. Oh my goodness. So let's get official on this auspicious occasion. My name's Dan, just as it has been for the last 999 broadcasts. And yes, sirree, folks, this is Daily Art Adventure number 1000, small wedding watercolor on this December 3rd, 2020. All right, so first of all, a little celebration. I have, you're all here with me. Cheers, cheers. Cheers. And some confetti. Did you catch that? I have to vacuum all this stuff up now, so that's enough of that. Yes, sirree. Started Daily Art Adventure. First one was January 1st, 2017. I didn't think it'd take me quite this long to get to 1,000, but there you go. And as some of you know, things have slowed down quite a bit just in the last 2 or 3 months. So, long story. Let's go ahead and get to work. So I am doing a little watercolor wedding. This is the photograph that I've been sent. The painting is 8 by 10, so I cut out a piece of paper that's that much larger than that size to make sure I give my client an 8 by 10 painting, not an 8 by 10 piece of paper. Do you understand? And I've already tweaked this photograph, actually in a number of ways. I took the bride's head off another photograph, put it on here. I have squeezed or elongated, I guess that would sound better, elongated the couple, slightly, 8% or something, very slightly. But here is what I've decided to do. Hello, Dr. Ice-T. Nice to hear from you. Hello, Michael. Thank you for hanging in there with me, my friend. So you've heard me teach, you regulars have heard me teach many times. Rather than using or relying on a photo technical trick at the beginning, at the outset, go ahead and try to draw it from pure observation and then employ. Okay, that's my normal, but I'm not going to do my normal today for a couple of reasons. One, this is small, it's watercolor, and I'm not being paid a ton. I'm being paid very fairly, not complaining. But I'm going to act like an illustrator today. So what you're going to see is me acting like an illustrator. So I have already traced this photograph this is paper, this is the original tracing. The reason is, if I tried to trace this photograph through this watercolor paper, hang on just a second, I'll let you see how well we can see that. The answer is not very well. Do you see that? So that would be quite difficult. I could do it, but let me show you what's better than that. To trace it on ordinary paper. Aha! Now that I can see. Does that make sense? So again, this is not what I generally do, and it's not It's not what I approve of, but it is what I'm going to do this time. And I'm going to, while I'm tracing in pencil, of course. This is going to be not one of my watercolor sketches. This is going to be what I would call legit style or official technical real watercolor painting, not a watercolor sketch painting, right? And so I'm working, of course, then in pencil. So this is the second time I've traced this image. And of course, I still can't see the image terribly well through the watercolor paper because watercolor paper is pretty thick and kind of rough. So this tracing work, of course, all it's going to do is get me close. It won't get me all the way around to home base. It'll just get me close to a likeness. Of course, much faster than, much more quickly and much more accurately than trying to do it by sight. Let me repeat, just in case there are any of you who are fairly new to my channel. Let me repeat what I said just a few minutes ago. So I used to call this kind of thing, I used to call it cheating for obvious reasons, right? But then I had actually an older gentleman artist write me a very thoughtful email a year or two ago, a couple years ago, I guess. And he persuaded me not to use that term because of the impact it was having on people like him, who, if they did not project and trace and grid and do any number of things, they would not be able to do paintings at all. Anyway, long story. So he talked me into it, or talked me out of. So now I don't call it cheating. I call it photomechanical tricks, tips and tricks, techniques. And again, I've said it 100 times. Using these tips and tricks and photomechanical means is perfectly legal. It's permissible, it's admissible, it's artistically legal, so to speak, being kind of facetious and kind of funny, of course, using the term legal. All throughout history, great artists have used photomechanical means. I don't mean all throughout, but I mean all over the last 1,000 years anyway. Artists have used all kinds of photomechanical tips and tricks. Even though they didn't have photographs, they had camera obscura. That's as far as I'm going to go into that right now. My point being, it's absolutely permissible, allowable to use these tips and tricks to get the job done. The only caution or caveat is you need to understand as an artist that the more that you rely on these kinds of photomechanical tips and tricks, the more you rely on them, the more your own native drawing skills deteriorate. Or to put it less negatively, that your drawing skills don't improve as quickly as you would like. So what I typically strongly recommend to my students or anybody who's listening, because I don't like the thought of my skills deteriorating. Do you? I don't. So what I recommend is, especially with portraiture, but really with everything, go ahead and draw the old-fashioned hard way, just by looking and drawing. Just do the best you can, and then employ photomechanical tips and techniques after you've given it the old college try, as they say. Does that make sense? So that way you've exercised your visual skills, so you've worked hard to capture the image. You've paid the price. You've made your brain grow. And then after having done that, you've made corrections. So that's what you see me doing almost all the time. But that's not what I'm doing today. Again, partly because this is a fairly low budget job. Again, I'm being paid very fairly, but that's all relative. And I'm not going to tell you how much that is. I'm just going to let it go at that. I'm being paid very fairly, but it's not so much that I don't have a little bit of motive to, now let's just knock this thing out. Let's just get it done. So I'm cheating. Whoops. See, there I did it again. So I am using photomechanical tips and tricks and techniques today, right from the get-go, instead of doing it the hard way. All right? So this is an exception rather than the rule. And of course, there'll be plenty of energy expended at the later end of this painting while I am trying to capture a perfect likeness, albeit quite small, right? And in watercolor. So both of those are limiting factors. Well, I guess not. Watercolor is not a limiting factor. Watercolor can be done just as literally or realistically as any other medium. In fact, watercolors really does lend itself to hyper-realist rendering if one is so inclined. Anyway, but the size of this does somewhat mitigate against a hyper-realistic effect, which of course I'm not going to try hyper-realism. I'm just aiming for realism. whatever the difference between those two is. And hi, Chan. Tsukumi-chan. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Forgive me. Thank you for speaking up. I will not be, sad to say, will not be finishing this painting during this broadcast. First of all, that would get a little bit monotonous. And plus my wife and I have an engagement in just about 40 minutes from now. So I'll do as much as I can and perhaps finish with Daily Art Adventure number 1001 tomorrow. Probably will do that, because watching me do the watercolor painting, I think, is relatively interesting. So this approach of using very precise technique for capturing the image very much does take me back to my days as an illustrator. In the world of illustration, the artist has to finish the illustration very quickly. Almost always, the ad agency wants the illustration, the old joke is, yesterday, right? They want it immediately, if not sooner. And of course, it has to be perfect. You can't hand off an illustration to a professional ad agency and the illustration doesn't look good. So it has to be good and it has to be fast, lightning fast and perfectly good. So that's why illustrators throughout the decades and over the years have relied very heavily on photomechanical tips and tricks, as did I. And by the way, that's part of the reason why I am aware of this principle that if you use a lot of photomechanical tips and tricks excessively, then your skills, in fact, do deteriorate. Because I discovered that, much to my shock and chagrin, probably 20 years ago now. It's like, egads, I'm a worse drawer now than I was when I was, 20 or something like that. So I made very strong and radical turn in my career when I discovered that that was happening. So for the last 16 years at least, I've been utilizing the principle I just described to you, which is go ahead and try to draw it the hard way first, whatever it is, and then only introduce the... All right, these are pink rose petals that the guests at the wedding showered upon the bride and groom. I don't know if it looks like their first dance, looks like that to me. And my client, the bride, was very careful to instruct me that she wanted rose petals in the air, so to speak. All right, now, let me think a minute again. So my drawing is finished. Traditional watercolor, very careful graphite pencil drawing. And I'm sitting here now, believe me, I'm sitting here with my chin in my hand, stroking my little white beard. Trying to decide if, in fact, I'm going to use a mask. I don't need to do that. I could just start painting very carefully, flesh tones, start painting the figures, and then paint up to sorry, I'm still thinking. These petals out here, the background, I'm not going to paint, like there's a woman, a guest here, woman with a blue dress and a mask on, and a little child, another woman with a mask. And so I'm not going to paint any of that. I will probably give hints of these, chandeliers, I guess. I was going to say sconces, but they're chandeliers back here. That's the only background. Floor and lights, that's the only background I'm going to include. Maybe the hint of a edge of the floor, very possibly. But I am going to do a mask on the rose petals, and then I'll decide after a minute or two whether to do a mask over the bride and groom as well. So let me give you a little bit of my thought process. You watercolorists already know this, but not everybody watching is a watercolor, so let me explain it to them. Here's what, let me get a bottle that's still closed right here. All right, so this is one of many masking products. This happens to be made by Grumbacher, called Mask It. Clever, huh? And this particular brand of mask, they've put a little bit of color. The mask itself is actually quite clear, which means that sometimes it's difficult to see, for the artist to see where he or she has been. hard to see where you've put the mask down because it's the same color as the paper. Right after it dries, it's transparent. So this Grumbacher has produced this particular mask with an orange tint in it, simply so that the artist can see where it is. That's all. Just a real simple little trick on their part. So once the mask has dried, then the watercolor painter can take a great big brush, say like this, and get a, in this case it'll be a warm brown, dark warm brown, and just slather it over the whole thing. And whatever part of the painting has this mask on it, of course, the watercolor will not stick, will not touch the watercolor paper where the mask is, right? So I'm going to start, as I said, by doing the rose petals falling through the air. That'll give me a few more minutes, because even if I don't mask the bride and groom, I really wouldn't want to, I would not want to have to paint carefully around every one of these rose petals. So this is a classic opportunity for using a mask. What I'm still debating is whether to put a mask over all the flesh tones and her hair and her veil and her dress and his sleeve. I would probably not put a mask over the groom's suit because it's dark. The good part about a mask is, well, it does its job very well. It will keep, all the color, as long as it's on the paper. No watercolor will get through it. The downside of a mask sometimes is that it creates a very hard edge, which of course you can come back as a painter and smudge it up a little bit later. And I'm still thinking. I don't usually have to think about this quite this long. Let me put a cap on this. Oh, by the way, just another word of advice. I'm using my limited watercolor brush kit. This is my medium small watercolor kit. I have a large. Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. But this brush is the designated mask brush. I always use this and only use this because it definitely clogs up the brush. Okay, it makes it not much good for anything else. I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the excess as much as I can. The old-fashioned mask used to be rubber cement, by the way. Artists would use, and still do, I'm sure, still do use rubber cement. It smells a little bit, has that faint ammonia. Smells to me like ammonia anyway. And it's very rubbery. So anyway, that brush is ruined, so to speak, for anything else. So I use it all the time, just for using a mask. All right, now. All right, I am not going to do a mask. Just decided, fairly, as you can tell, pretty arbitrary. I've just decided not to do a mask on the flesh tones and the bride's dress, all the light stuff. I'm just going to paint the edges by hand. So that means I can go ahead and start painting. And well, this is not dry yet, so I can't do any painting on that but I can start painting flesh tones. All right, just one comment now about this particular watercolor kit. Let me look for the lid over here. Let me just change this. I don't know if you can see that or not. It says here, Portrait Watercolor. This is my portrait watercolor kit, and I believe I've already put a still image, a still photograph of this kit on my community page, on my YouTube community page, with all the colors identified. Although actually I've got a couple here. One, maybe it's just one. There's one color here, I don't know what it is, which is unfortunate. But let me, what's special about a portrait watercolor kit? Let me show you just a second. Just again, just make sure I'm being clear. So this is my no, this is my the lid is glued on, well, glued with watercolor paint, I might add. All right, this is my normal watercolor kit. What's the difference between this and this? Well, not much, just one key important issue, and that is I know that none of these colors over here are staining watercolor paints. And again, those of you who are watercolorists, you know what I'm talking about. All of these colors are liftable. As you put them on the watercolor paper, and if you need to, especially with the help of a Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, which I have around here somewhere, I'll show it to you later. I can, but even without that, I can lift these colors out, which I want, because I don't want to, say, put one of these flesh tones across the bride's face and then go, ooh, that's too dark, and then go to lift it up and discover, oh my goodness, it's a staining color. Does that make sense? So my portrait kit, I did years and years ago, I did a fairly extensive research to pick these colors. And again, if you want to know what they are, go to the community page, which, sad to say, those of you who are using an iPad for some reason, you can't look at community pages. That is so strange. All right, let's see who else is saying hi. Hello, Terry Ford. I want to be a part of history today. Hello, Uncle. I will answer. No, I did not. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, Uncle. Thanks for your email. Hello, Wanda. Thank you very much. Hello, Misude. Hang on. Misude Tufexi Mehaba. And Justina Nevado. Hey, Elgado a tiempo. Thank you. All right, so let's start painting. So I don't need, I can take this. This is what I traced a few minutes ago.
Car off yet? You want me to turn the car off yet? Our car?
So, gang, I have a momentous, or maybe not momentous. Anyway, I have an announcement to make. Another one. Boy, I'm getting good at these announcements lately, aren't I? And Uncle's already made allusion to it. I've made a decision, and it's possible I may undo this decision, but as of today, probably won't. As of today, here's what I've decided: that instead of starting a second YouTube channel, I'm throwing caution to the wind. And I'm just going to keep right on broadcasting on this one channel. And boy, now I've done it. Now, you newcomers, you beginners, you recent arrivals, so what is he talking about? All right. About 3 months ago now, or so, my wife and I received a surprising change in career. I've been a full-time artist, as most of you know, for the last 16 years. Hardworking, full-time artist. I am now a part-time artist. I'm still very serious about my artwork. In fact, one of the concerns that I had at the outset of this was like, oh no, I don't want to lose my artistic edge. I don't want to start slowing down artistically. I'm very much still serious and focused on improving, and that is, I expect to continue to improve as an artist. But I am not reliant on the sale of paintings to pay my mortgage, electricity, groceries anymore. I am a full-time, and again, in America, the term we would use, even though I kind of choke on it every time I say it, the term we would typically use in America is, I am now a full-time pastor or leader of a church, even though the group we lead doesn't look anything like a church. Well, it does, because it meets on Sunday morning. But we meet outside in a parking lot, believe it or not. And it's very unconventional looking. That's enough. That's enough descriptions for now. I'm just going to leave it at that for now. And even just last night, I've done a number of things to try to inaugurate and initiate a new channel so that I can, from now on, do all of my, I'll call it spiritual content on one channel and keep doing my artistic content on this channel. And I have had absolute fits, technological fits trying to accomplish that fact. I started a brand new Google account, new Google email, new account, new YouTube channel, everything, all to no avail. Now, I'm sure I'm doing something wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm positive that I've done something wrong, but after a fair amount of trying, I have not been able to remedy whatever it is I'm doing wrong. And this is one of those moments in life where it's like, okay, after a fair amount of trying hard and failing, it's like, maybe something or somebody, getting spooky here, forgive me. Maybe something or somebody doesn't want me to do that. I can't swear to that. That's been my experience sometimes throughout my life, that when you find yourself blocked, maybe you're going in the wrong direction. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. When you find yourself blocked, maybe you're going in a bad direction. So at the moment, as of today, as of this morning, I decided, okay, what the heck? I'm going to put all of my spiritual content right here on my art channel. Now, and what makes me feel bad is the right way to put this. Yeah, what makes me feel bad about this is that I have a number of people who have followed me, of course, because of my artwork, and have no interest in anything I have to say in quote-unquote the spiritual realm. And I just want you to know, I'm sure I'm going to say this more than once, but I just want you to know that I am sincerely sorry about that. I really am. That's why I tried so hard to not do this. Because I know that it's very likely that I will, so to speak, lose friends. Not because of me, but in fact, it already happened on my Facebook a couple months ago when I ventured into some discussion of political spiritual issues. I had some people that I thought were my friends, honestly. And I honestly think that way deep down somewhere we still are, but they became very incensed. Not just at my spiritual content. And again, I want you to know that I'm doing this with eyes wide open. I know what I'm doing, and I am keenly aware of the relational, so to speak, cost that this may entail. But as I said, after having thought about it for quite some time, I've decided to go forward anyway. So one little word of comfort is that I'm going to try to label my videos very clearly. If I'm going to talk about spiritual things, I will make that quite clear from the title. In fact, I'm not sure that I'm going to do this, but I'm toying with the idea of calling it Daily God Adventures. And so if you're one of those who would be irritated by what you would call religion, even though I'm sure you understand, I'm sure you've heard this. I'm quite sure you've heard this. You understand, don't you, that for those of us who are people of authentic faith, the term religion is quite negative. That is, I'm not a religious person at all. But that's another story. But I will label them very clearly. So if you don't want to hear, again, what many people would call religious content, then you can just avoid it. Now, I suffer no delusions that will make people happy, because simply many of you, and not many, some. Forgive me for having to rattle on like this for such a long time, but I just want to be clear. There will be some people who will not be able to watch my art videos once they discover that I'm a thoroughgoing, or at least in my opinion, a thoroughgoing disciple of Jesus Christ. They won't be able to stand to watch my art, even though they may have liked my art up until this point. And I understand that. I feel bad about that. Not so bad, of course, as you can tell that I'm not going to do it, or planning to do it. But I am aware of, if you will, the risk I'm taking. I also know that there are a number of people who have enjoyed my art content who are going, yay! More of you are just curious, like, wow, well, this is going to be interesting. I don't think I suffer any delusions, or is it illusions? Suffer no delusions. I suspect that there are a number of people who will unsubscribe, and again, not because I'm afraid of losing subscribers, but just because I enjoy having relationships with people of all kinds. So I will not be the one, I will guarantee you this, I will not be the one closing a door on relationship with any of my viewers. You're welcome to say, now if you get abusive and obscene, then I'll probably block you, but that's not, most of you aren't going to do that. That's not what we're even talking about. So yeah, I feel bad about being an irritant to some of you. There we go. So that's the announcement. Stay tuned or don't, as you wish. Stay tuned to hear spiritual content. I will say a little bit in not my defense, but let me describe myself a little bit again, because some of you are wondering, what? I've already confessed that I'm for want of a better term, a thoroughgoing follower of Jesus Christ. Okay, commonly in America called, or in the West, called a Christian. And for many of us, of course, even that term is problematic because it's been so sullied by, Christians in history. Be that as it may, it's still a reasonable term. But I am that. And again, I go into this with eyes wide open. I thought of an analogy. I've mentioned this in the past a time or two. A funny word picture. When you and I, when we see a man, or a woman for that matter, but mostly a man, when we see a man who's bald in back, not a man who's bald up front, but a man who's bald in back, we're all tempted to have a little pang of feeling sorry for that person, because we wonder, maybe I'm the only one who thinks this, but we wonder, does he know how bald he is from behind? Now, I want you to know that because of my broadcast experience and history, I want you all to know I am absolutely 100% aware of how bald I am on the top back of my head, because I see it all the time in videos. So you don't have to have any, pang of self-consciousness for me. I am aware. But I'm using this as a word picture. I think sometimes, and I don't know what to call the rest of you, those of you who are not believers, I'll just say unbelievers, okay? And I'm not using that as an epithet or curse or negative statement, just those of you who don't believe. I feel like sometimes you wonder, do those Christians, do they really know how stupid they look? And I'm going to answer, at least for myself, yeah. Oh, yeah, we do. Oh, I do anyway. Not everybody does, but I do. I'm keenly aware of that. So you can relax. You don't have to wonder, does he know how stupid he sounds? And I know this is not all of you by any means, but some wonder that. If I were an unbeliever, I would wonder that about Christians. It's like, man, do they have any idea how dumb they look? And I just want to put you at ease. I'm saying this so you can relax and go, oh yeah, he does. Okay, cool. So I don't have to worry about him. You don't have to feel embarrassed for me, okay? While I'm on this subject, I'm sure I'll be describing so here I am in an art video already slipping into spiritual, but this is different. This is an introductory statement, okay? So you can know where I'm going. There is, in fact, and I think I could say this without, again, please receive my words not as an attempt to convince or evangelize you. Nobody likes to feel like they're being evangelized. So let's just put, take this as a non-threatening moment. And let me describe for you a little bit what it's like to be a follower of Jesus, and say that there's something intrinsically humiliating about being a real follower of Jesus, because, and I'll just explain it in this way. If you're a follower of Jesus, you're not allowed to be a smartass. That's just the best way to put it. Forgive my French. But if you're a follower of Jesus, you're not allowed to fight fire with fire. When people come at you with smartass attitudes and words, many Christians throughout history have indeed come back with smart-ass responses. But when they do that, they're not being a follower. They're being what we might call a backslidden follower of Jesus, not a very good follower of Jesus. So that response is shut off to those of us who are serious about following Jesus. We're not allowed to come back with smart-ass answers. And so that's what I mean when I say that there's something intrinsically humiliating. I had a friend once who, as I was teaching this in a small group setting, said, well, Dan, don't you think humble would be a better word than humiliating? I said, no, absolutely not. Absolutely, no. I'm choosing the word humiliating on purpose, because you can be damn proud of your humility. You can never be proud of humiliation. All right. I'm going to leave the subject of spiritual issues in this turning point. And again, I'm just serious as I can be. My apologies to those of you who are dismayed to hear all this. I do feel bad if I'm dismaying some. It's obvious I've decided to proceed to go forward anyway, in spite of my dismayedness. Some of you will no doubt enjoy this journey with me quite a bit, and we'll have a lot of fun together. All right, that's enough of that. Let's go back to art now. And for the most part, as I said, I'll be making, whenever I'm going to talk about spiritual issues, I will make that quite clear in the title, and I'll make it clear whenever I'm going to be talking about art. So if you don't want to listen to you won't be surprised. Okay, I mean, I have violated that boundary today as much as I ever expect to. Okay. Hi, Michael. Thank you. You're kind. Very kind. And the rest of you, I mean, you're more than welcome just to spy. You might be militant unbelievers. Some. And if you want to, if it's fun to you, you're more than welcome just to listen in and see what crazy, what crazy things. Some of you maybe you don't even know a serious follower of Jesus, and you might be quite surprised to discover what some of us think. Okay, so I keep saying I'm done, and I guess I'm not. I will tell you that I'm in this shift. I'm operating out of my true identity. You've had hints of that all through the years. Whenever I've started getting philosophical on this channel, on my YouTube art channel, one of the self-defenses I've voiced often is that some people have said, you're good. Stick to painting. It's what you're good at. And I always kind of laugh and say, no, I have no idea. Art is something I do. The spiritual side of me is something I am. So I'm going to be actually operating even more out of my authentic calling, gifting, nature, interest, personality, and so forth. So that's all. This is not. Again, I'm not a painter who theologizes. I'm actually a theologian who paints. Again, I picture some of you. You've already hung up, I know, but putting your hands over your ears and running away and screaming. My sincere apologies. All right. Now, maybe I'm off. Now I'm back to art. So as you can see, I'm just being pretty careful. Just plain old build up layers little by little from lighter to darker to darker to darker. Very, very traditional. Control. Look at this control grip. Have you noticed that? What I'm doing here is quite a different animal from, my wild and crazy two-handed oil painting. Yeah, no, this is a different world. This is a different world. This is the world of control, and more control. But it's fun. It really is. It's fun for me. And because I know that none of the colors in this particular tray, this tray right here, none of these are staining colors. I know that I have the option of lifting out colors whenever, and I'm sure that I'll do that. I'll probably employ every trick in the book. I'll do some scratching, I'll do some lifting, I'll do some who knows what, but probably hopefully no opaque medium. If I do use any opaque watercolor in this piece, I will disguise it, and I'll talk about that when I do it. I'll disguise it very carefully so that hopefully even an experienced observer would not be able to discern that I've used an opaque medium. And I certainly have done that trick many times over the years. I'm not going to tackle her face right now. I will tell you that when I do that, I'm going to be picking up a brush, maybe this small. This is not a good brush, but just to show you how small it is. And I'll almost certainly put on 2 pairs of glasses. That's a fashion statement worth noting. 2 pairs of glasses at the same time. That's what you do when you get old. Hey man, I'm just thrilled that I can still see well, even if it does require 2 pairs of glasses at the same time. I'm thrilled that my eyes work well enough that with enough magnification, I can see what I'm doing. So that's the kind of thing, and my head would be completely in your way if I were to do that right now. So we will forego that, at least for the moment. I've got about, I just looked at just looked at my watch. I've got about 4 more minutes to go here. But let's go ahead and do some of this background. So even though I'm using a 2-inch brush, a 2-inch brush does not mean a complete lack of control or edge, right? And it's really not nice sharp edge on this. Polar Flow is the name of this brush. I don't know if it's manufactured for Jerry's Artorama. It's not, certainly not an expensive watercolor brush. At the same time, it's not a real cheap. I don't know. I think this brush right here probably costs $20 or something like that. You won't find one at the dollar store. In other words, I hate to think of a sable brush this size would cost $1,000. I imagine. I'm never going to buy one. Why would you? My point started out to be, it has a nice edge though. I'm being very careful to go around the edge of the bride and groom. It's very likely that later in the painting process, I will actually come back and smudge that edge, that line somewhat. And I will be, in fact, I'm going to smudge the back of his suit right now. Overlap. Not smudge, but overlap these two colors. The color of the background and the gray. So now I hope you can understand why I wanted to, why I used a mask on those rose petals. That would have taken a lot of time to paint around. Every layer I would have to paint around those rose petals. So I'm very glad that I chose that option. And the only downside might be that when I remove the mask, long time from now, several layers from now, it will create a razor sharp hard edge, and all of those rose petals having a razor sharp edge would just be too much of a good thing, shall we say. Too much of a bad thing if you follow my oil painting much. But that's not difficult, because I can pretty easily smudge any number of ways. I can smudge up the edges of some of those rose petals. Once again, here's my reference. I'm working on only 140-pound watercolor paper, so it can't take a great amount of abuse. If it was 300-pound, I could really lay into it with some serious X-Acto knife. I still will use an X-Acto knife, but I'll be pretty careful with it to scratch out some of the white lace on the bride's dress. All right, this is a good place for me to stop. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Hello, Sharon. And I'll be back tomorrow with Daily Art Adventure number 1001. Whew, I'm glad that one's over. Crazy. Hang on, let me